it's like magic. It's like magic. It's not like chemistry.
Mhm.
It's not complicated. It's not hard to implement. It's not hard to understand. But once you start using it to communicate, it really is like magic. It's like you've cast the spell.
Mhm. Hey guys, welcome to the Levelin Up podcast with Brigham Blackham. I've got my friend Preston Bowman here. He is a master marketer, and we're going to be diving in and trying to understand a little bit more about how to make your stories sell. He is a certified story brand expert, and I'm so grateful to have him on the call. Preston, how you doing today?
I'm doing great, Brigham. How are you?
I'm fantastic. Thanks. I'm so excited for our listeners to have a little bit of experience with story brand. So tell me a little bit, how did you first get connected to helping people become the hero of their story?
We were working with one of our clients, and they had run across they were a nonprofit actually, and a friend of the organization had learned about StoryBrand. I had never heard of it, but he had said, "Hey, I'd like to come in and do this little workshop with your team," and they wanted us there. So we all sit down, and he pulls out a pad of paper that and ripped one of these off and handed it to everybody on the at the table and began
Yeah.
walking us through the 7 parts of the story brand framework. And I'm just sitting there, and as I think back to it, I'm thinking my chin must have been on the table with my mouth just gaping open, like I've been in marketing for, at that point, for 15, 17 years, and I'm going, where has this been?
Hmm.
This is sort of the missing piece. And so from that point forward, I began to research it. I bought the book. It's over my shoulder here,
Yeah.
and we started using it with our clients. Um, yeah, it's a game changer.
I love that. So let's first kind of understand like the basic process. Say we had someone that wanted to do a consulting group project with you and say, hey, I really want to make sure that my customer is the hero of their journey and they understand what these 7 steps are. Could you help us just give a 30,000-foot overview of what that looks like?
Yeah. Can I take a few steps back and
Yeah,
first just talk about story?
sure. Yeah, let's just talk about story for a moment.
So this is where I like to start. Um, we experience all of life in story.
Mm,
Our life is a story.
it
Our
is.
day is a story. We get up in the morning, we go through our day, we get to the end of the day, we think back through the day, and we think about the story of our day. When we get together, whether it's over dinner or on a Zoom call,
Yeah,
and
yeah, exactly.
so when we get together, what do we do? Whether we're getting together for lunch or whether we're getting on a Zoom call, even with our coworkers, we spend the first 5 or 10 minutes just catching up on things. What are we doing? We're telling stories,
Mhm.
and that's how we are wired. That's how we're created to experience life. Even if you think about, you've got a stressful event tomorrow, whether it's a doctor's appointment or someone you need to confront, some high stakes sales meeting, whatever it is, how do we plan for it? We keep rehearsing it in our head. What is that rehearsal? It's a story. We're telling the story that we want to see happen. And that's how we prepare for things. We experience all of life in story, and we get to business. And what do? We think bullet points are the best way to communicate. And it's not the case. We
That's
need
not.
to communicate the way we communicate everywhere else, and that's with story. So that's sort of my little spiel about why understanding story in business is so important. Um, The second piece, and you alluded to this, but many businesses don't understand, is that you don't want to be the hero of the story. You don't want to be the hero of your client's story. You want to be someone that comes alongside the client. You want your client or your customer to be the hero of the story. So I'll give you the quick overview of the 7 parts of the story brand framework, created by Donald Miller, who is a former screenwriter, and so he understands how a good story is pieced together. And if you hear these 7 pieces, in fact, I've never done it in this order before, but I'm going to give you a few examples that you can be thinking of as I talk through the 7 parts. Think of Luke Skywalker and Obi-Wan Kenobi. Think of Karate Kid and Mr. Miyagi.
Daniel-san.
Think of Frodo and Gandalf. Great illustrations that all use this framework. So you have a hero or a character. When we hear the word hero, our minds tend to go to superhero. We're not talking about superhero. We're talking about just the hero of a story. They tend to actually be weak. They tend to be a little lost. Yeah. Again, think about the examples I just gave you. And they tend to be facing, and this is the second part of the framework, a villain or a problem. So you have your hero, your character, facing a villain or a problem. Third part, they meet a guide. Yes. And the guide comes alongside and says, hey, I am offering you a plan on how to overcome that villain or that problem. And I'm going to call you to act on this plan. Now you stand at a crossroads, a decision, a choice. Am I going to act on?
Ooh, right here again is a number 3. So you stand, he's basically going to be talking about, you have a decision. This is the inciting incident, the thing that you get to choose. Am I going to go from Suckville to Awesome Town or not? It's so important. So we're going to wait for him to come back on. 3, 2, 1. Okay, so you said step 3. Repeat step 3 for me. You said what that was.
Yeah, step 3 is you meet a guide. And the guide is going to present you with a plan. And that plan is how to overcome that villain or that problem. And then he's going to call you to act on the plan that he has presented. Now you stand at a crossroads or a choice. Am I going to act on the plan or am I not? And down one path, one choice, are a series of stakes. The things that you will either continue in or that will worsen if you do not act on the plan. And on the other side is the series of successes that you will see if you do act on the plan and overcome the problem.
The pain and the pleasure, right?
Exactly. And then the hero chooses to take the guide up on it, follow the plan, see the successes, and then there's a transformation in that character from who they were to who they needed to become. And you see those 7 parts in those movies that I gave you, and thousands of other stories and movies. So the way that overlays over a business is your customer or your client is the hero of their story. This is not about your story. This is their story. And they meet you and you are the guide. And you have a plan. You have a way for them to solve the problem that they're facing.
Yeah.
And you outline for them the stakes if they don't solve their problem, and the successes that they will experience if they do solve the problem, and you call them to act on the plan. That's simple.
That's it.
And you know what? the studies have shown that when you communicate your marketing message in this formula, uh, and you do it well, your prospect, rather than reading about your story, because they don't care, they see you entering their story,
Mm.
and they see their story getting better because you're part of their story, and they will respond positively to your offer. And it's a significant change from a traditional message of here's who we are, and here's our services, and here's the awards that we've won, and our grandpa started this company, X number of years ago, and we're a family run business, and here we go. Our principles are integrity, and you get all these, and everybody, they tuned out at the first words because they
Right.
don't care, because they didn't hear their problem and get a sense that you understood it.
Right. And that's so key. So I've been reading a book recently that is really opening my mind to understanding that the things that people care about is typically themselves.
Mm-hmm.
What are the ways you can solve their problems? What are the ways that they can be more efficient, or have more fun, or go somewhere and live their dreams? If we focus in on how we can help that hero get to where they want to go, everything is going to be better in business, because it's not about you, right? Your service is not about you. Your product is not about you. It's about them. And if the focus is wrong, the light is turned wrong. It's kind of like on the stage. If you have the lighting done incorrectly, you're not going to be placing focus where it needs to be placed. You're not going to be directing your audience to know where to go. And that's
Great
why good
analogy.
messaging and marketing is so important. It's like highlighting. Here's like boom, you're like getting the right light right on you. You're
Yeah.
highlighting the things that will help them get to where they want to go. It's that bridge. And the story of your customer, if you get it right, oh my
Mm-hmm.
goodness, it opens up so many opportunities. But if you get it wrong,
Absolutely.
it's like, oh, you don't actually care about me. All you care about is yourself. All you
Yeah,
care about is
exactly.
talking, right? So,
Exactly.
could you give us a concrete example? Something you're like, well, before this is how they were doing their messaging. After we've worked with them for a little bit, got the story brand figured out, then someone went from Suckville to Awesome Town. Let me let me hear an example.
Yeah, you're probably gonna have to cut this. Let me think for a
You're
second.
good.
I mean, it's like we've done this for 50 companies. Um,
Who is one of your favorite examples? I mean, one that you're like, man, they were really struggling with getting their words correct, getting their message out. And after you went through the process, it was like a light bulb turned on for them. Like, oh, now I
mhm.
understand my mission, and how to articulate it to my customer.
Yeah. Okay. Brigham, when you ask that question, my mind immediately goes to a a father-son business
Hmm.
that um, has two generations now helped nonprofits raise money, and they do it both in consulting and by having an in-person academy where people come in for a 2-day at a retreat and learn how to ask for money. And their website was antiquated. I mean, visually, it looked like it was, from the late 90s, maybe.
Yeah.
Um, and but all of the messaging on the sites was all about the bullet points of here's what we're going to cover, and you know, and the book that the dad had written years ago, and yeah, it was all about themselves. How
Mm.
long ago they started this and all of that. Now, I will say, let me just interject here. It's not that we don't ever talk about those things, and it's not that they don't matter to your prospect. It's that you don't lead with them, because
Yeah.
at that point they don't care.
Yep.
Once you have shown that you understand their problem and you have a plan to overcome it, um, toward the end of the whole process, we introduce a little bit more about the guide and we talk about empathy and authority. So here's
Mm.
why I understand what you're going through, and here's why I'm the one to lead you out. Um, but most companies lead with that, and that puts them in the position of the hero. Uh, so going back to this father and son team, as we went through our process with them, which involves 1 to 2 fairly long interview sessions, really digging deep, um, and then going back and putting together a brand messaging guide, having another session where we walk through that with the client and even make adjustments based on their feedback. What was so fun about this, and it's not exclusive to them, we've seen this a number of times, as we go through the process and we begin to educate them on how to talk about themselves,
Mm.
we're not even at the end and have concluded the project, and the client, and particularly them, are coming back to us going, we're already using this language in our emails. We're already using this language in sales calls. And we haven't even nailed the language down, but they're so understanding, grasping the importance of communicating this in this framework and in a way that grabs the attention of their prospect. They're so eager to begin using it that they're using it before we're done. And so they've become one of our strongest champions. The messaging on their website, messaging in their sales calls, this how they talk about the problem they solve has so changed. It was just a dramatic change from who they were.
I love it. And you think about it this way. I've heard multiple marketers talk about this, but the clearer you can articulate the problem, the more confidence your customer has that you can solve it. If you don't actually understand
100%.
the problem that your customer has and you can't let them know how you can solve it, then their confidence goes down. And the fact that that confidence goes down, it makes it harder to sell them on that idea, that solution. But as soon as that
100%.
confidence meter is like pinging, they're like, oh, he understands my issue. He
Yeah.
understands exactly what I need to do to get from point A to point Z. Why not? And then they're trying
Yeah.
to figure out, all right, is there any reason? Is he saying is he actually who he is, who he says he is? And then does he actually do what he says he's going to do? And as
It's like magic. It's like magic. It's not like chemistry.
Mhm.
It's not complicated. It's not hard to implement. It's not hard to understand. But once you start using it to communicate, it really is like magic. It's like you've cast the spell
Mhm.
over the prospect um, because you're communicating so differently than your
Yeah.
competition, who wants to say, hey, pick us because we're the best.
Mhm.
And we've done this for longer than anybody else.
Yeah.
And just, and it's all about them. And as soon as you exactly what you just said, as soon as you start talking about them and their problem, and they go, you get me, and you listen, where do I sign?
Yeah. And I think the things that great marketers do in comparison to average marketers is have an option for them as soon as they're ready to purchase. That's something I actually
Mhm.
really like about the simple marketing. There's a Marketing Made Simple by Daniel Miller. I read that book. That was my first exposure to story branding.
Yeah.
But this idea that anytime someone's ready, able, and willing, give them the opportunity to purchase. You don't need to talk to them anymore. There's no convincing. Like sales isn't about convincing. It's about saying,
Yeah.
do we have the problem, the solution to your problem? Yes or no?
Right.
Yes.
Right.
Do we have the confidence to take action? Yes. No need to talk anymore. Let's just get to work. I think that's
Hmm.
huge.
Yeah.
So let's say On your journey, I know you've been in business for over 10 years. It's been almost 20, is that right?
23. Yeah.
23. Okay, 23 years. So sorry, undercut you a little bit. 23 years
It's
in
okay.
business. What is one of the patterns that you've noticed? One of the ways that you're like, man, when they do this consistently, success just happens. You oops money because you're so good at following that pattern.
Sure.
What's a pattern that you've noticed in business?
So the first thing that comes to mind is just simply being consistent with a pattern,
Mm,
right?
yes,
There
consistency.
are there are any number of, patterns you could put in place, processes you could put in place. But the problem with most businesses is, oh, I hear this works. Let's throw a little money over here. And
Mm,
oh, I hear that works. Let's throw some money over there. None of these things work. Don't understand why people talk about this all this time. That doesn't work at all. And how many times have I heard a business when I bring up, hey, have you thought about Google Ads? Oh, I tried that. That doesn't work. And it's because one, they didn't know what they were doing, didn't
mm,
take the time to learn or hire somebody that did know what they were doing. And then they didn't give it time. They
yeah.
didn't just stick with a process, iron out the kinks, and just let it grow. So, what I would tell you back to your question, what process or pattern have I seen that works? I would put it in kind of three categories. One, um, have your foundation, uh, a solid foundation, and by that I mean a website that is uses the story brand framework and
Mm,
book that you mentioned, not building a story brand, but marketing your small business. I think is actually
mhm.
the name of the one I'm thinking of by Donald Miller. Um, it has a little bit about story brand in it, but it gives you the pattern you're asking for, actually. All the pieces that you should have in place, right? But what I was saying was, if your foundation, if your homepage flows with the correct,
I think what he was going to say is it flows with the correct ideas that attract rather than distract your people. That's so key. One of the things I've noticed about story brand, about not just sharing ideas, but making sure that it's in the context of a story, is when you are putting things in the context of a story, it makes it easier for people to recall, and recallability is a huge thing in marketing and advertising. So, oh, there's Preston. Okay, come back to what you were saying. You said uh, in this book, uh, it already shares that framework, that pattern. Go ahead, tell us a little bit more about that.
I magically produced the book right in front of me that I was talking
Oh,
about.
what?
So that is the book. Um,
Yeah.
and it outlines how to do a homepage using the StoryBrand framework, so that the visitor to your page immediately sees themselves and not all this stuff about you. Um, so get your foundation right, your website and wherever you communicate your business,
Mhm.
get that messaging right. Second, how do we do some quick wins? And by quick wins, I mean uh, paid ads. So you're depending on your business, what it is you sell. There are different avenues that you can go. It might be Google ads, it might be Facebook ads, might be LinkedIn, might be the right place to be. And those are the quick wins. And then what is your long-term strategy? So one, we've got a place for them to go uh, and see themselves, and that you offer a solution to their problem. Second, we have a way to get traffic to the site. Okay, now that I've got traffic to the site, what do we do then? So we don't want to just trust they're going to land on the home page and click the buy button. We want to give them as something a really high value, low cost item. And the best low cost item is it only costs me my email address.
Yeah.
So we want to offer something that is really, really high value. We've already convinced them that we understand their problem. So if you can tell me even more about my problem and that there is a solution for it, I'm willing to download something or get access to a 3-part video series that you're going to send me over the course of the next week or whatever it is in exchange for my email address. Then you get their email address, you drop them into a nurturing sequence using a CRM software, and now you're pinging them with a pre-written series of emails that continue to build trust and convince them that you understand their problem, and you nurture them toward a purchase.
Yeah.
And if they get through that whole sequence and they haven't purchased, then they drop into your ongoing communications. It really, I mean, there are complicated pieces under each of those, but it really comes down to it being that simple. Have a foundation, a great website that the messaging is correct, drive traffic to the site, and third, have a way to nurture the people that come to your site.
I love it. And here's one of the things that I think is really helpful, because I come from a background in theater, come from a background in storytelling, language acquisition. Anytime you can attach a story to something and really have it easily recallable, suddenly you make your brand like indelible in their head. It's not just, hey, they did X, Y, and Z bullet points. It's not feature based, it's benefit story based.
Right.
And people remember stories much longer than they remember any factual things. Like what was the last fact that you remember in history class? You're like, I can't remember hardly. But if you have a story attached to it, suddenly those facts become real.
Mm-hmm.
And the more you can focus in on the right things, making sure that they are the hero of the story, they go all the way through that hero's journey, like James Campbell, the more you understand storytelling, narrative, and being able to connect with people on a psychological and emotional level, it changes your interactions, because you're no longer just sharing ideas. You're saying, this is a way that we can get you from point A to point Z. We're the bridge. If you believe this bridge, we do what we say we're going to do, and we are who we say we are. That confidence creates the action to walk across the bridge. That's all sales
100%.
is that transference of confidence and belief. That's it.
Yeah.
If
Yeah.
they don't have the confidence, they're not going to purchase. They're not going to take the action. It's huge.
Yeah.
So, if you could say one last thing, I mean, like one little bit of encouragement, what would be something you would share with someone that's new in business that you think would make all the difference? What would be that little bit of encouragement?
I would say when you are in a situation where you're talking about your business, whether that is at dinner with a couple, and somebody asks, "So, what do you do?" And there's the potential that there's an opportunity for business. You figure out how to answer that question very succinctly. And again, there's an easy formula for this. It's problem, solution, outcome. So the recommendation is be able to answer that stating the problem. You know, people that struggle with such and such, we have a solution that addresses it this way, and they get to experience this. So problem, solution, outcome. And you answer that in a very short couple of sentences, and you immediately go into asking questions.
Yeah.
That's my one tip, is shut up and ask questions.
It's so good.
Just listen.
You'll get way farther in any conversation focusing in on them and being interested over interesting.
Yeah.
Than you will in
100%.
any amount of story that you share about yourself.
100%.
Because people love to talk about their favorite subject themselves.
Totally. What always amazes me is when you get together with someone if you ask questions and they don't learn a thing about you and they do all the talking, they come away from that time with you going, that was so good. That was so good. But they did all the talking. Why was it good? Because someone listened.
Mhm.
And that is the first step in a successful sales process, is to be heard.
Yeah.
And that goes back to the whole 7-part framework, right? When you begin, whether it's your homepage or a sales conversation, by talking about their problem, they feel, even if they haven't said it, because they go, you get me, you get my problem, they feel heard.
Mhm.
And so that's my one takeaway. The one tip is use your ears more than your mouth, and just ask good questions to find out what they're struggling with
It's
and
huge.
how it's impacting them.
Absolutely. If I want to bring up this one thing, I barely had a guy named George Bryant who is a master marketer, but he kind of goes against the grain with traditional marketing. He says, I don't care about the algorithms. I care about the relationship.
Mm-hmm.
If you can really let people have a human connection with you, that's what's going to move the sale faster than anything else.
Yep.
And one of the things that I think is really helpful when you're thinking about storytelling in the process of being able to create the sales process is if you don't have an honest relationship with them and build relationships by listening, like what you said, then what are you doing? You
Mm-hmm.
have to listen. And I think if
Yeah.
you don't actively listen, you don't build that relationship consistently, maybe those drip campaigns, if it's not furthering that relationship, if it's alienating you, you're actually doing more harm than good in that relationship. That's why
That's
good
very true.
messaging is so key. And that's
Very
why it's
true.
so important to focus in on what actually matters to the people that you're talking to.
Yeah.
So, any final thoughts before we sign off, Preston?
No, I just appreciate having this conversation with you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me on today.
Man, it was a pleasure. I'm so grateful to have a few minutes to chat with you and wealth of knowledge and experience. 23 years in business, man. That's so cool. Tell us where people can find you. You said it was Stone Creek Consulting, but where do they find you?
Sure. StoneCreekConsulting.com. Shoot me an email at pbowman@stonecreekconsulting.com. Would love to have a conversation like this with anybody who's interested. You talked about relationships.
Yeah,
I love building relationships, and just finding out where people are and what they do in life, what their story is.
exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story. I'm so grateful to have you on today. I'm excited to continue to work with you. And guys, go follow Preston. He's awesome. So have a great rest of your day. God bless, guys. And we'll cut right there. Sweet. Hey, good job. That was fun.
Thanks. It was fun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty. Well,
Except for all
not
the dying and coming back.
coming back. They'll have a couple points where I'm gonna have to cut that. That's all good. Not a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, well, we had a good conversation though. That was very helpful. I haven't
Good.
read
Thank
that
you.
one, Building a Story Brand. I probably need to read that book because
Yeah, that was the
what I've
first one.
noticed. Oh, go ahead.
That was the first book.
That was the first book. Yeah, I
Yeah.
really like Donald Miller's stuff. What's interesting is because I have a theatrical background, there's nothing in the story side of it that I haven't heard before. It's just nice
Sure.
to have another person saying it in a different context. So
Totally.
yeah, because
Totally.
I think of it as 12 steps, but he says 7 steps
Hmm.
in there. And I was like, oh, it's a little easier for someone to understand,
Yeah. I
So
I keep a stack of those, and I keep a couple of them in the car, and I give them out. If I get
sweet.
into a business conversation with somebody, out and about, I'm
Yeah.
like, hey, let me give you a copy of this book. And a lot of times when a client starts with us, if they're local,
Hmm.
I'll hand them a copy, and they'll get 2 chapters in and go, this is incredible. So it lays a good foundation for us
That's
working
great.
with them. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, Preston, I appreciate you. Let me make sure I've got the best phone number for you to send you the link tree. Preston. Okay. And what was your phone number one more time?
913
91
461
461
4025.
4025.
And what's
Okay.
that for?
I'm going to send you the test drive that you're asking about.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I'll send it over text. I've got my link tree in there. That's the easiest way to do it, but I'll send it there. And then the only thing I need you to do, just so that we have clarity, you have 7-day access to it. All you need to decide is, do I like it or not? That's it.
Yeah.
Okay. So go through it.
Okay.
It's about 15 minutes a day is what the expectation is. You go through it. You can do more because you have access to 60 plus hours. I don't expect you to do all of it. I know you're busy, but go through it and experience it in the way that you feel will best benefit you. Okay.
I love it. And you've got information on the learning side of things.
Yeah, that one you will have access to it. The way that our current like customer journey is on that one is you'll go through basically one section of like 4 or 5 classes because each section is like 8 to 10 minutes long.
Right.
And
I'm
you
talking
can go
about
through
the
it.
how to study.
Yeah. So the how to study side, that's one called the Genius in 21 Days, and that's the first class of that is in this. So you can actually experience. Yeah. So awesome. Go through the 15 or so minutes a day and just decide, do I like it or not? And then we'll have another conversation at the end of the week. Sound good?
I love it.
Sweet.
Thanks,
Okay,
man. I've enjoyed this.
Yeah, it was really fun.